Good evening, Temecula. I'm Kathy Sizemore, and it is Monday, February 13th, 2023. Time is 6 p.m., and I'm calling this meeting of the Temecula Community Services Commission to order. Please join me as we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, would our Commission Secretary Tracy Courts please take our roll call attendance?
Yes. Commissioner Castro?
Here.
Commissioner Hawks?
Here.
Commissioner Kingsburg?
Here.
Vice Chair Audi?
Here.
Chairperson Sizemore?
Here.
All present, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tracy. And we do have some public comments tonight, so I will go ahead and read the rules of our public comments. A total of 30 minutes is provided for members of the public to address the Commission on matters not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the Commission Secretary or by submitting an email to be read aloud into the record at the meeting. So we will go ahead and go to public comments now.
So we have one public comment tonight, and it will be Julie.
Good evening.
Does this just automatically turn on?
Let's see. Do you have something you need to?
Yeah, I have a flyer that I'm going to talk about. So I don't, okay, I don't know how to make this work.
Yes, I think our IT staff back there is coming out to help you with that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
No worries, we should have had it on. We just don't normally even have a call for it, so.
I don't know how to make it work.
We're happy to have you, so we're willing to wait.
Does that look good to you?
All right, as good as it's going to get, I guess.
Cool. Awesome. Look good.
Does it? Oh, so he controls.
Thank you, Jello.
So hi, I know some of the faces in front of me, but for those of you that do not know me, my name is Julie Majarczyk. I am the president of the Disability Sports Foundation here in Temecula. The DSF is a small nonprofit that I founded here just a few years ago. Our mission is to bring more adaptive sports to our area and to those individuals living with a disability. I believe at the bottom of my heart that everyone can play a sport so long as you present it in a manner that works for them. So no matter if you are 2, 82, 102, and regardless of your disability, I feel that everyone can play as long as you present it in a way that works for them. As a mom of a special needs child, I have seen firsthand too many individuals sit on the sideline watching their family members play, and it's time that we help them get off the sidelines and get into the game. Over 1 year ago, I sat in this very chamber during a city council meeting listening to a community service presentation by Erica Russo. She mentioned during that presentation that she mentioned a mom that said, Temecula does a lot for autism, but does nothing for the visually impaired. That statement hit me pretty hard, and that night I vowed that I would do something about it. I am here tonight to announce the launch of our new Beat Baseball program and ask for your support. Beat Baseball is similar to the game that you are familiar with, but with a few notable adaptations. The balls beep, the bases buzz, and everyone cannot see. Beat Baseball is baseball for the blind and visually impaired. Currently, there is only one team of its kind in all of California, and if all goes well, we will be the second. This March, we are excited to be hosting 2 introductory clinics here in Temecula to allow individuals the opportunity to try the sport and determine if they want to join the team. Members from the San Gabriel Valley Panthers in Pasadena will be on hand to help us launch the program and show us how it's done. We are offering this program at no cost to our community. I'd like to invite you all to come out and check out the clinics and see for yourselves what adaptive sports are all about and what they can do for our community. I have a few flyers with all the details and will be happy to answer any questions about our foundation and our new baseball program after tonight's meeting. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming out here tonight, and thank you for what you do to serve in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would ask, is it possible we can get that information shared with our Ready Commission?
I presented
Okay.
last week.
You're a step ahead of me. All right.
I was
Thank-
just there.
And I can forward the flyer around as well.
Can we ask a question?
Technically, we can't have any discussion during public comments, but
It's a
I could
Clarity?
ask a question.
There's a clarification.
I could certainly ask a question.
How are the numbers of residents, Temecula residents, the numbers, how is she doing with numbers?
Oh, like so far, how many?
Yeah.
How much interest have you had so far, Julie?
That's actually really hard to gauge because a lot of special needs families are not very open about that. I do know, I've been trying to reach out to the Braille Institute in Riverside. I have forwarded the flyer to other organizations like Lighthouse for the Blind, both in Riverside, San Bernardino County, and San Diego County. We do know that there are others in the area that are interested. They just don't, they're not very, very forthcoming. So I've been trying to find the numbers of actual Temecula residents, but that's a very hard number to gauge since nobody actually is very open
Okay.
about it. I've been trying to find that number,
Yeah.
but
Thank you.
I will say that it's a very small niche that we're targeting, and so we expand out to anybody in the surrounding areas that want to participate are welcome to come.
And if I can add for the commission, we were discussing previously at the Ready Commission that given how few opportunities there are for this, that this would only be the second team in all of California, we would anticipate potentially getting interest from, perhaps as far away as San Diego. So we could pull from a much larger area than just Temecula itself. So, but we'll see in these upcoming, interest sessions, kind of see how many people express interest, so.
Erica, is it open to the public to come and view?
She wants to know if it's open to the public.
It is.
Come and view, okay.
Yeah,
Spectators.
anybody basically anybody that has, that is completely blind, visual impairment, low vision,
Mhm.
you're welcome to come out, either volunteer with us or participate. We won't turn anybody away.
And those of us who aren't, are we able to just come to the tryouts and see and observe, or?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
perfect.
mean, the more that people get to see,
Sorry, yes, thank you.
the more people that get to see the sport, the opportunity, the more awareness that we can bring to it, the better it is for all of us involved.
Okay,
So
Thank you, Julie.
anybody that wants to come, whether you just want to observe or participate or volunteer, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you.
thank you. We've kind of stretched the limits on what we can do in a public comment. In the future, we could always bring Julie back for an actual presentation if we wanted, which would then open it up to more discussion. And in the meantime, I have Julie's contact information. If there's any additional questions, you can email me. I can put anybody in touch with her. We can just kind of all,
And I'll
communicate.
be happy to stay after the meeting. Anybody that has any questions about the organization or the sport, I'm more than happy to stay and answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the only public comment, Tracy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to go ahead and move one item on our business calendar or business agenda up and before our division reports, and we are going to receive and file a presentation on playground equipment and safety surfacing project from Stacy Fox. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission and staff. For those that don't know me, I'm Stacy Fox. I'm the Park Maintenance Superintendent. So I get to oversee all our parks maintenance activities, landscape, and our urban forest. And one of my more fun parts of my job is the playground renovation projects, which I'm presenting to you tonight. So just a little background on our playground renovation project. Back in probably fiscal year 16, 17, we did an internal assessment of our existing playground structures, the conditions, the age of them, and then we came up with a list of playground projects and kind of a schedule to replace these park playgrounds. To date, we've completed 15 playground renovations. These are themed playgrounds with high play value, throughout our different parks. And also these projects included some safety surfacing replacement as well. This fiscal year, we're looking at replacing Red Hawk Community Park, Temecula Creek Park, Long Canyon Creek Park, and Calle Aragon Park playgrounds. And I'm just going to go over the proposal and the concept designs at each park. First up is Red Hawk Community Park. This park sits in the kind of the Red Hawk and Vail Ranch area. You can see there we have ample parking and lots of open field space there, and also this is where our dog park sits on the south side of town. So, and there in the middle, that sand area is actually the playground area where there's an existing small structure that was built back in 1999, which we're replacing. So, the concept for this playground is calling it Red Hawk Harbor. It's really utilizing that entire space with different play structures and play systems of two different age groups and separating them. You can see in this playground concept, we made it a real adaptable playground with adding the accessible ramps throughout the whole play system. And that gives access to all the different play components on the ground and within the features of that playground. And we also incorporated shade structures within the play structure to kind of maximize the shade over those play spaces. So here's another angle showing the different transfer stations that are wheelchair accessible and the different slides and climbers. This is the 5 to 12-year-old age range playground. Here's another angle, shows you that glider there where it's a wheelchair accessible, so a person that's in a wheelchair can access that and actually kind of ride that glider back and forth and be a part of that playground play. And then on the opposite side of the playground, we have the younger tot lot playground feature, which is a 2 to 5 age group with smaller climbers and more age-appropriate structures. And also we have incorporated shade on that play system too. And we replacing the swing set system too, and adding the two different inclusive swings. We call them generation swings, where the child and the caregiver could ride the swing at the same time. And one of the neat features of this playground is they have QR codes on this panel here that you can scan in, and it promotes like different activities on the playground. And then another feature of that, it actually reports back to us on what the children and what's being used on that playground. So kind of gives us an idea what kind of play's going on there. And here's kind of a bird-eyes view of the layout. Kind of, if you recall that previous picture of that large sand pit with the small structure, now we're kind of using that entire space with the playground system. So the total project of this cost is just over the $500,000 mark. This play system is about a 12 to 15 week lead time from the time we order the equipment, and we're looking at about a 5-week construction. And then this is tentatively going to council on February 28th meeting. Next up is Temecula Creek Park. This park sits on the eastern side of Vail Ranch in Red Hawk community. It's the kind of the easternmost section of the Temecula Creek Trail. So there is the trail system that runs along the creek, going from east to west, kind of along the Temecula Parkway corridor. This one we're going with a jungle play theme on this system. This playground is a little different than our standard playground because they call it like a deckless system. So it has a series of nets and climbers that are integrated into each other, connecting each section from climbers to ropes to slides throughout the play system. And in the middle, they have this, call it a DNA tower. So there's color panels in that where it refracts lights, the colors down to the ground from the sunlight. And this one also has some adaptable features to it. There's a wheelchair accessible ramp there where somebody could access that ramp there, climb up, and then climb through the structure and go down the slide on the other side. This system's unique from what we have in our current inventory, because basically every component of this playground is, could climb on or in or around or on top. So just another angle. This one also has the QR code for the Play On National Demonstration Site. And then we're actually incorporating the swings. Swings are the most popular in our playgrounds. We're trying to make sure we keep those in our playground where we can. So, and another bird's eye view of the layout. And this one we're looking at about $330,000 for turnkey construction. And again, 12 to 15 week delivery, 5-week construction, and we do plan to take this to council on February 28th. Next up, Long Canyon Creek Park to the north. This park is actually not shown here, is where our pump track is. It's on the kind of left side of the screen, and it's across the street from Day Middle School. And then up on the top right-hand side is the 2 different play areas. For this system, we're going with this tower climb theme. It's actually another they call it a super netplex. So really it's a tower that's kind of filled in with the different nets that you climb up through and access to the top of that tower. And then we also incorporated shade on this to maximize that shade value. Another bird's eye view. I do have a video I'd like to show, just kind of give kind of a visual on how these play systems or the playground designers build these structures to make them more adaptable to people with all abilities. So.
Super Netplex is a really neat creation because it's not something, it's a big tall tower and it doesn't necessarily scream inclusive, but there are all kinds of really inclusive elements that make it a lot friendlier for everybody to come and play and use and get that sensation of being up high, which is really neat. Because it's one of those things that addresses something that's challenging to achieve on the playground. When kids want to get out of their chairs and get that sense of challenge and height and get that idea of climbing, there's very few things that offer that on the play space. And so this is something that allows me to get out of my chair, to climb to the top, get that really tall sensation, and then go down the slide. This spiral belting is really cool because I can get to the top, whether I'm crawling and going forwards or scooting backwards. There's an accessible route to get to the top where we have these cozy spaces where I can kind of sit back and chill, or I have all kinds of challenging routes to move around this thing. It's a lot of really subtle things that make this so much more accessible to everybody. It's having these plates in the spiral belting that kind of give me this great point to perch and to sit and take a breather in the middle of climbing this thing so I can get some rest and then tackle it again when I want to. For the first time, we have an accessible route entirely to crawl up to get to the highest point on this tower. And I get to go down the big slide, which you don't really get to often do. And so this is a really cool approach to challenge play.
Right. This project total cost is about $430,000 again, and this one has a little bit longer lead time from this manufacturer. We're looking at about 24 weeks, but a 5-week construction. And again, we'll be taking this to council on February 28th. And last is Calle Aragon Park. This park sits in one of our older neighborhoods in town, one of our first developments. It's a neighborhood park. And it has just a little small play space that we're looking at replacing this little Odyssey playground feature. So it's for the younger age group, 2 to 5. very simple play structure. And this one's coming in at just over 70,000 with that 12-week lead time, 2-week construction. So. And this playground renovation projects, it's a CIP project that we have. You can see we're scheduled out for the next 5 years on different playground renovations. And we took this to the subcommittee with their approval and are in the process of preparing the agreements on all 4 sites and taking this to council on February 28th. We're also going to continue evaluating and identify our future playground projects. And then we're also looking at playground concepts for Ronald Reagan Sports Park, which that is scheduled for next fiscal year. So we're looking at some ideas and themes for that park. And then we're also evaluating future renovations for exercise stations in our playgrounds in our parks, such as Temecula Creek and Bell Ranch Park. So. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions, if there are any.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate you coming out here tonight and giving that to us. Yeah, well, I'll, yes. So very thankful for you sharing this with us. I'm excited to see Kaye Aragon get a renovation. That's actually, my daughter's 23, and that was her first park as soon as she could walk, because it's so small. And,
nice, yeah.
I rode my bicycle by there not too long ago, and I was like, wow, it looks the same 20 years later. So it's great to see that. I really appreciate that all these parks are inclusive for play. That is, it's amazing that we are in an age now where that is something that we are building for. Because I remember when I was a kid, I had a friend who was in a wheelchair, and she could never go to the park or play on the playground at school. So I'm so thankful that we're doing parks now that everybody can play at. So we'll go ahead and take questions from our commissioners. I believe Commissioner Castro has something he'd like to ask.
Sorry, I didn't know how it worked. I have a 3- and 5-year-old grandsons who are connoisseurs of the parks in Temecula, and their favorite are Stephen Lennon, the fire police one, and the pirate park on Nicholas Road. So if you haven't gotten any feedback, the themes really go over big with them. And I really appreciate having the different age groups, because the 3- and 5-year-old can do different things. One of the things I saw there was a glider on the one you presented. I think it was the first one. We were at the Margarita Community Park, and they have a glider there. I think there's part of it is broken. There's something in the middle, like a table that's supposed to be there that was missing. So I didn't know if you were aware of that, but we're big fans of the parks, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And we'll take a look at the glider.
Oops, if I can jump in on that really quickly. If any of you happen to notice anything like that in a park that needs to be repaired, or potholes or anything, we have the city app. I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's a great way to report things, because the park ones will go directly to that guy right there, and he will get on them.
24/7.
Thank you very much. I will say the themes are awesome. I know my kid, like I said, my oldest 2 are in their early 20s, and I don't think they realize that the Castle Park is actually Temecula Hills Park. I don't think they know it has any other name. Any of our commissioners have anything to ask? Any comments? Commissioner Hawks?
Yes, thank you, Stacy. I really appreciate all the parks, and my kids and I frequent those parks, especially when they were newly renovated. That's like a theme. That's like one of the exciting things we do in the summer. One summer, I think we hit over 20 parks. So I think our community will really look forward to all these parks being renovated. So one quick question is, what's the criteria for you to identify which parks are going to be renovated?
So the first round of renovations, we were looking at basically the playgrounds that were in disrepair, falling apart. So some of these playgrounds, they were made or built back in the late 80s, back when the county actually built them. So some of them, they we were replacing just to bring them up to current playground safety standards. So that first round, we replaced all those. Now we're just kind of going down from oldest to newer as we work our way through our whole park inventory. So we're getting near the end, so.
Thank you, and I look forward to visiting those
Great,
parks.
thank you.
Thank you. As you mentioned, safety standards, do we have a procedure that we remain aware of what any changes of requirements are, and we're going through our inventory and assessing our equipment?
Yeah, myself and two of my staff are certified playground safety inspectors, so we're up to date on the most current safety standards for playgrounds.
Okay.
This is, it's called CPSI, and the state recognizes it as kind of the regulatory for playgrounds, setting playground safety standards.
Okay.
So we follow those guidelines, and myself and park maintenance staff, we do regular inspections of the playgrounds. And then we also have a third-party playground contractor that evaluates them too. So.
Okay. Do we have, I know we have a number of HOAs in our community that have their own playgrounds. Do we hold them to any standard where we require them to do any kind of inspections so that all the, their parks are safe for our residents?
At the city level, I'm not sure that we do, but I know they are looking at, some of the HOAs that I work closely with are looking at that more and more as these standards get more stringent. And the
So
liability is
Is
much
there an entity
higher.
that holds them accountable? Does the state come out and inspect, or?
No, there is not.
Their liability, though.
Unfortunately, it's not
Okay.
until somebody gets hurt, then
Yeah.
it becomes, an issue.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, I appreciate
Huh?
all my questions. Commissioner Kingsburg?
Thank you for the presentation. And it looks like you have a plan going ahead for the next 5 years, at least fiscal plan. I'm just kind of curious from the renovations that have been done, are these in line with the other renovations? I trust costs have continued to go up. But as far as designs go, are these similar to other parks? Are we kind of in a new era in the last year or so where we're taking off with some new designs with this accessibility, et cetera?
Right, yeah, we're always looking at those, the themes and that play value, but we're also, this round we looked at because of the increased cost of custom play structures. I really looked at, call it catalog playgrounds that these playground manufacturers have, and we kind of pick and choose what's out of the catalog and trying to avoid that custom part that really drives up the cost on these. So we are seeing that cost of materials is up and the playground's up and lead times are much longer. So unfortunately, these playground manufacturers, their catalog stuff is really nice too, and it has a lot of play value to it. So that's what we've been looking at this round. So.
Thank you. Vice Chair Audi?
Thanks, Stacy. I was really excited to see that there are two parks down on the Temecula Creek Trail. The one trail that is already, DG and pretty nice trail on the east side of Butterfield. But then the future trail along the creek by Red Hawk Park. My question is that when you redo the playground equipment, do we ever tear out the hardscape around it? So like in your pictures, you see the sidewalks, but do we ever have to just replace those sidewalks, or do they pretty much stay the way they are?
That was another a way to keep the costs down, is we use the existing footprint for those playgrounds.
Right.
Once we have to tear out all the sidewalk, that becomes a much bigger project, and probably
Okay.
its own CIP project to be able to do that.
So they're all in the existing areas?
Yeah.
And just redo the areas?
So we took those existing measurements and figured out what's the biggest playground with the most play value we could fit in this space. So,
Okay, that's helpful. I wanted to say too, it's just great talking about parks. We haven't talked about parks in a long time, so that was nice. We've brought up in the past, and as you look at the 5-year plan and you look at exercise equipment, things like that, we've made comments as commissioners about connecting those kind of sidewalk trail loops we have around our parks, like at Long Canyon, it's a complete loop. We've noticed residents out there walking on them and not being able to finish a loop around the park because of that. Is there another, like in the SIP, are there other areas of park renovations where we would continue to look at connecting those trails?
For example, like at Ronald Reagan, or?
Yeah, Ronald Reagan would be, like for me, I used to go there early in the morning and be frustrated because the grass was really soggy where the trail didn't exist.
But there are those gaps
Yeah.
where the sidewalk just kind of dead ends, and that
Right.
is kind of a future CIP project that I do plan on bringing forward.
That's great.
For next fiscal year to try to fill in those, add those connections so somebody can
Awesome.
do their laps and not have to walk through the parking lot.
Fantastic.
So.
Well, thanks, Stacy. Like I said, great talking about parks again. I know you've had a long day, but
Oh,
we really love having you here.
thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy, and I'm just going to be consistent. I'd love to see a restroom facility at Long Canyon Creek Park in lieu of a porta potty. I'm just being consistent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, now we will go ahead and go to our division reports. And our first report we will be receiving tonight will be recreation, and we have Cassandra with us tonight.
Good evening. I'll be presenting the first part of the division reports. My name is Cassandra Hargett. 32 new aquatics professionals were hired to fill lifeguard and WSI vacancies. New team members will begin at the end of this month. Staff toured the MRC and saw where the future pool, first aid room, lifeguard office, and break room would be. The chemical equipment storage room at the CRC is nearly complete, and all aquatics programs have moved back to the CRC pool as of February 11th. Training this month included in-water rescue skills, active and passive rescues, scanning techniques, and critical thinking training. Contract classes had a very busy January with over 1,300 people participating in city classes. Categories included camps, performing arts, special interests, visual arts, sports and fitness, youth and teen enrichment, and toddler enrichment. We offer a variety of classes for all ages and abilities. And upcoming is the Expo on April 29th, which will highlight the different classes and instructors, as well as the different divisions in TCSD. CRC is temporarily closed and construction is underway. During the closure, staff have been looking at ways to improve programs. They toured the Marietta Youth Center and created a collaborative relationship with Marietta's recreation supervisor, Victor Patino. Scooter Jam was held on January 21st at the skate park and had a great turnout. This popular event includes music, refreshments, giveaways, and other fun activities. Special thanks to Scooter Zone for donating prizes and giveaways for our events. The CRC Teen Zone will temporarily be closed through May 2023 and is currently operating out of the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library and Skate Park. Teen Zone seasonal theme boxes continue, and they are set to complete at their own pace at home. One illegal encampment was identified and cleanups are currently being scheduled. Point-in-time count for Riverside took place this month on January 25th. One individual received assistance for emergency housing and another received transportation. Ongoing collaboration with SWAG, CMOH, CAL FIRE, and the core team is in place with monthly meetings. In-person programs this month included Winter Color Fest program, STEAM Forensic Science, 21 preschool story times, and a Winter Wonderland contest. Upcoming event is the Magical Melodies concert on February 15th. Mulching is taking place citywide to beautify the city's medians, parks, and slope landscapes. Local recognized youth leagues for baseball and softball officially started practicing for their spring season. Youth Soccer League is gearing up for their spring season. City Adult Softball and Kickball League is scheduled to begin the week of February 27th, and upcoming are multiple youth baseball tournaments throughout the month of February. Rod Run registration opened on January 11th at 8 a.m. The final spot just filled over the weekend. The TCC and picnic shelters had a total of 19 rentals for 1,150 patrons. Welcome Center had 493 walk-ins. And upcoming is the TCSD Staff Appreciation Day on February 21st at the TCC. And SMER Solar Project ribbon cutting is on March 2nd at the Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve. January 2023 was an eventful month. City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater had 2 full weekends of performances. Reverb Tap Company performed on January 7th. Reverb is known for combining dance and film as well as bringing down the house with its electric performances. In addition to the performance, they offered a free 90-minute masterclass, which was well attended. Temecula Presents performances this month included DSB, a Journey tribute band that left patrons dancing in the aisles. Ronstadt Revival, a Linda Ronstadt tribute. ELLAS and Rat Pack, a birthday celebration of Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater performed and sold 8 sold-out performances with shows of Peter Pan and West Side Story High School Edition, sorry. The Merc series continues this month with 14 featured shows, including country, jazz, speakeasy, stand-up comedy, classics, and Brazilian and Latin jazz. Highlights include Daniela Meraz, Temecula born and raised, performed her first country live at the Merc performance. Stand-up comedian Darren Carter performed stand-up comedy at the Merc. Brazilian and Latin jazz in the Merc had a special performance featuring a tribute to Astrud Gilberto by Ann Walsh, singing in Portuguese and English, and interpreted songs from her newest album, The Astrud Project, as well as other Brazilian and American songs from her previous albums. Ann was accompanied by an amazing lineup of musicians, including Tom Zink, Mitchell Long, Kevin Axt, and Lucio Vieira. This concludes the first portion of the report, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Cassandra. Let's see, we'll start with Commissioner Kingsburg for questions or comments.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, Cassandra. Looking at the numbers, the first number you put out there, 1,340 participants in January, which is for the contract classes, which is, again, a quiet month and a tough weather month comparatively to others. That's impressive, and I'm pleased to hear about the expo at the end of April. Good way to promote globally what's going on, and the fact that we have quite a bit of renovations going on, yet our strength of facilities is strong enough to where we can pivot and move things to alternate facilities is great to see. Just kind of a curiosity thing, I noted the comedy production, and I heard about it last time. Is that a relatively new addition to what we do monthly, or is that something that's been kind of in the books for a while?
We have had a comedy at the Merc before with a different producer, and then this is a new producer that's bringing more high-end, well-known comedians. Mm-hmm. They're doing very well. Great. So it is a co-production with a new vendor / co-partner with Temecula Present.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Kingsburg. Commissioner Hawks?
Thank you, Cassandra. I'm really happy to see the TCSD Staff Appreciation Day. You all deserve a round of applause. And I want to know, is this the first time we are doing it, and can we come to support?
I'll let Dawn jump in on that one. She plans our events.
In the past, we've often hosted a holiday party for our staff, but December's not the best month for us. We're busy, so we don't really have time to do that, so we're trying February for a change. The event's just an open house style kind of day, because our staff all have different schedules, but you're more than welcome to stop by between 9 and 2.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hawks. Commissioner Castro?
Thank you for the report. I ride the Santa Gertrudis Trail a lot early in the mornings because I go out and volunteer at Community Mission of Hope. And I saw in the report you sent out this week that there's a lot of homeless there or unhoused there early in the morning and even up into the early afternoon. Is there a way to report that or to get them help? Because it doesn't bother me, but I can see where if you were a single woman or a family trying to ride your bike down there by Jefferson and Winchester, where it could be intimidating for people to ride their bikes through there.
Commissioner Castro, I was one of those women this week when you're going underneath the Jefferson one. There was someone on each side.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned that someone was going to jump out at me, so I just rode as fast as I could. But it got me wondering, what kind of surveillance, and I was like, should I report this? Should I call Erica? Because it made me uncomfortable.
No, I really appreciate you bringing that up. First of all, on the app, one of the options to report is homeless concerns. So I definitely recommend download the app, and you can just, with the tap of a button, report a homeless concern, and it allows you to even do a pin drop from where you are. So it geo-tracks your location. You can change it if you need to change it, like you're trying to ride away and report something you saw half a mile ago, you can do that too. But it will default to just pin dropping your location. Also, you can always text me, and I can get that over to Mike and the team. Mayor Schwenk has made us aware of that area in particular the last few weekends. He's, I know, had some encounters along that section of the trails. So we're trying to utilize a combination. On Saturdays, our homeless outreach team isn't on, and we find weekend mornings seem to be particularly problematic. So we're trying to utilize a combination of patrol response from RSO, as well as Stacy, unfortunately, is not here, but his staff, they are park monitors, and when he has them on, then they can also patrol the trails. But I appreciate you both bringing that up because it gives me some idea of how the problem is continuing to persist. So we will definitely be hitting that hard.
Yeah.
What I've seen lately too is there's more use of shopping carts. So they pull the shopping carts up onto the trail and they're blocking some of the lanes because before they were usually on the other side of the fence there by the Winco and that area, and it wasn't really an issue. But lately they've been under the underpasses
Okay.
and with the carts. You probably saw this.
Yeah, I went on Thursday, and like I said, when I went under, there was one on each side of the trail, which had me concerned. I guess as a woman, I've been raised that you've got to be worried about these things. But I was kind of worried that somebody might grab me as I rode by. And then on Saturday morning, I was riding with scouts, and we noticed someone in the same area.
Sorry, when was the first episode?
For me, it was Thursday at around 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
And then on Saturday, again, it was around 10 a.m. on Saturday.
One recommendation I can make is to ride with Commissioner Oddie because he's very slow and they're more likely to capture the slow person and you can just ride off. It's the bear theory.
We do not endorse that approach.
Like I said, I'm on my e-bike, so I figured if I just rode at like 20 miles per hour through it, that I'd either go so fast that if they did grab me, I'd hurt them in the process, or I'd ride so fast they wouldn't be able to get me.
Well, I appreciate you guys bringing this up, or commissioners, I appreciate you bringing this up, absolutely. this is the sort of safety concern that ultimately we don't want people to have to make that calculation. We don't want people who are utilizing our trails to have to be thinking, should I ride faster? Should I divert? Should I,
I almost
know.
turned around and went home, and I was like, God, because I have a loop that I take that's around a 20-mile loop, and I was like, God, I came all this way, and I'm going to have to turn around and go back.
And that's the last thing we want. So one thing we are hoping as well is that as we found this with Sam Hicks Park, actually, if any of you remember several
Yeah.
years ago when the playground at Sam Hicks Park had been broken, it was falling apart, eventually we removed everything, and it became kind of a de facto gathering ground for some of the criminal transient activity in the area. We had a lot of, not a lot of, but we had some pretty consistent issues with drug use, solicitation, fighting, a lot of really unpleasant activities going on at Sam Hicks Park. And when we were able to renovate through the program that Stacy manages, when we were able to renovate that park and put it in a playground, what we found was that suddenly there are families there are kids coming, people are using the park in a constructive way, which means that people who are there to just do inappropriate things, sell or use drugs, engage in other criminal activities, it's just a less appealing place at that point. So the other factor here is that we hope as the trail system becomes more and more complete and more utilized, that the use itself will help discourage some of the inappropriate uses. At the same time, anyone in Southern California is aware of what happened at the Santa Ana River Walk, and we want to be very cautious that we don't allow that sort of activity to take hold in our community as well. So we, I feel it needs to be said, since we haven't talked about homeless outreach in much detail here, but since about 2015, the city has had a very aggressive approach of both outreach and enforcement. Meaning when we encounter someone who appears to be homeless, we always offer services first. We have contract outreach providers who are all licensed social workers who are able to provide resources. And our first approach is always to offer resources, whether that means connecting them with a rehabilitation program, mental health resources, transitional or bridge housing. We do anything in our power to offer resources. We've been so successful at that in the last year or so, we've seen sort of a shift in our population around here, where a lot of the people that we're encountering as homeless individuals are actually what we would call criminal transients, meaning they're not receptive to or interested in receiving resources. They're typically engaged in criminal activity, and they're simply looking for a place to conduct that activity. The networks for those individuals can be very sophisticated, and we've had some issues just over the last few months. A couple of abandoned buildings here in the city became sort of flop houses, for want of a better word. And when we realized the activity was going on inside, we found a lot of drug paraphernalia, a lot of really nasty stuff going on. One building in particular, we've gone in, we've cleared people out, we've issued arrest warrants where that's been appropriate. We've locked the building. We've come back multiple times to find locks broken, personal belongings inside, stolen materials inside, stolen belongings. So I simply offer that to say that the city is not just out there taking this criminalized homelessness approach.
No.
We do not do that. It is very much outreach first, enforcement only when there is criminal activity, but lately a lot of what we've been seeing, probably the larger percentage of what we've been seeing, has been in the criminal activity category. So to bring it home, what the activity you're seeing on the trails may be part of that, and either way it is something we want to address, because we want people who just want to be able to ride their bikes on the trails or jog on the trails, or families out for a walk or walking your dog. We want people to be able to enjoy that without being bothered or concerned about their safety in any way.
Because that was one of my thoughts was, okay, gee, I guess I can't do this anymore.
No, that's absolutely the last thing.
That's not the right.
Yeah, no, that's the last thing we want to have happen. So in conclusion, not conclusion, but in summary, download the app, report on the app, text me anytime. You can text me and I can get that to the right people. And definitely just keep letting me know if these things are recurring, so we can be sure that we hit the spots where the activity is the highest.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
One last comment.
Yes, of course.
I volunteer at Community Mission of Hope, and
Yes.
I know most of or not most, but I know some of them that are been there for a while, and they're like the people that are they're not the transient people, and the ones I saw on the trail weren't the people I normally see at Mission of Hope. So
Thank you, Commissioner Castro. We appreciate that. Community Mission of Hope is one of our regular partners and has been for as long as the city has been doing homeless outreach. And similarly, our staff and our homeless outreach officers and our social work individuals, it's the same team. We have, 3 or 4 officers that work on this. Well, actually 5 now. We have a team of 4 from our social work action group. We have a team of 3 from the city. So it's very small groups, and they get to know everybody in the community pretty well, and they get to know, who has a mental health issue, who is on hard times and needs a little assistance, and who is criminally transient. So,
All right, thank you, Erica.
thank you.
I have a follow-up question, Erica. So for those criminal or those having criminal activities, what are the follow-ups?
We engage with Riverside Sheriff's Office. We dispatch deputies, and they address it in whatever way is appropriate in terms of the criminal justice system. So, arrest warrants, criminal investigations if that's warranted. One example would be it's not uncommon to find bike theft rings where people are stealing bicycles and parting them out and selling parts. And so that would be something where it might be more than just arresting one individual. It might actually be doing an investigation to see if they can track down, is there a bigger pattern here? But we have 4 deputies and 1 sergeant who are very much focused on homeless outreach, and they actually sit up in community services now. They're part of our larger team. And it's the Community Outreach Resources and Engagement Team, or CORE team, and they deal with all of our quality of life issues. So we call them, and they respond in whatever way is appropriate based on the law.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Audi?
Cassandra, way back when, that was a great report, thank you. Your Portuguese pronunciation was challenged, though, I think, in Gilberto, yeah.
I definitely need to practice.
We'll work on it together.
Thank you. I'll take it.
I think, I had a question on, I'm not sure if you're going to know this, you might, but I noticed the comment on mulching the median and the parkways. At what level does community service deal with medians and parkways?
So that medians and parkways are under Stacy, who's our park maintenance superintendent. Years ago, maybe up until about 8 or 9 years ago, parks maintenance was under TCSD. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, that got spun off. It's now under Public Works. But from a fiscal reporting standpoint, we are all under the TCSD fund. So when you look at the budget, the general fund is one part of the budget, the TCSD fund is a separate fund, and parks maintenance is actually under that same fund. So from a fiscal standpoint, they are the same legal organization that we are part of. Additionally, we work really close with Stacy because he handles the parks maintenance, we handle all the park programming. So we like to highlight what he's doing in our reports as well because it's just kind of relevant to community services. So a little bit broader, back when the commission was formed, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, the focus of the commission was really on park development and acquisition because this was way back in the day when we didn't have any parks. And so it was very natural that park maintenance was part of TCSD and it was all under the same commission.
Okay, well, yeah, and it's getting obvious why I ask this question usually. It's tied into as our roads become more involved in our trail network. I have all kinds of ideas and proven strategies for parkways and medians that can improve our trail system. So I'm kind of interested in the fact that is somewhat included and that we do have a say in it. It's not all traffic. It's that it is under our purview too. So that was good news for me. I wanted to talk about a conversation I had with Tracy Courts in regard to volunteer programs. I think that the theory is usually when you bring people into an area, you will see, in a positive way, that you will see crime activity, vagrancy those types of things drop off. And I used in our conversation some of the outstanding volunteer programs that I've come in contact with in my research. So the one that stands out to me the most was Chico, California, where they have Bidwell Park, which is a very narrow park that is the second largest park west of the Mississippi, city park. And that city had an amazing volunteer program. So they actually have a staff member in charge of their volunteer program. It's so big. And they have, a staff that only does volunteer programs. Let me put it that way, okay? And it is, what happens is you have these different groups. You have cleanup crews, you have, and it's ongoing. So they're volunteer groups. The cleanup crew might be wearing purple, and then you have patrol staff who might be wearing red. They actually have volunteers who are trained in first aid and rescue. They have people in wheelchairs that are out patrolling the trails too. So I think that as we go down the road, consideration for expanding our volunteer program, that it's the visibility of an organized volunteer team working on the trail to clean it up, or replanting native plants, these types of things that not only increase the use of the trail, but have that visibility that make criminals, vagrants want to stay away from that area. They want a more private area. The other thing that volunteer group can do is report to rangers, report to using the app. They're well trained at using the app, or have the correct numbers to call when there is an emergency situation. So I just think something that we ought to really look into down the road as we continue to build our network of trails. There can be much more of a use for that. So that's my comment, and hopefully it was helpful for the future. And again, Cassandra, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Now we will have our Cultural Arts Division report from Isabel Aguilera.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm happy to present to you this evening. Starting with our Arts and Culture report of art galleries and Art Off the Walls event. The Arts and Culture team hosted the Art Off the Walls and gallery reception on Friday, January 6th. Guests explored booths on the lot on Main and connected with the gallery at the Merck featured artist Sydney Edmond. Complimentary refreshments and live music were provided for guests to enjoy. This free event welcomed 175 attendees, including Commissioner Ernesto Castro, so thank you for visiting us. Miss Edmond's gallery was titled Passionate Voices. She is an award-winning artist and poet. Her art represents people who are passionate about their culture, arts, politics, and humanity. Something I was delighted to find, kind of further research before giving you this report, was Sydney's mother actually shared in an interview at the Merck Gallery reception that Art Off the Walls was the first event that Sydney had ever publicly shared her artwork, and the community just embraced her, and they encouraged her to present her work in a gallery, and I just love that the event ended up promoting inclusivity, and she had the exposure that she needed from this community. Moving on, art gallery showcases had the following. In observance of Black History Month, the Rotunda Gallery at the Temecula Valley Museum displayed original early 1960s voting rights posters, including 2 featuring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The last day to view this gallery is March 12th. The gallery at the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library continued to display Sherry Herzberg's photography, California Lessons Declared by Nature. The Civic Center Gallery features Faces, an artistic study on human faces and emotions by local artist Ron Furkovich. Miss Edmonds' exhibit at the Gallery at the Mert concluded on January 29th. Here's an update for the Old Town Utility Box Art Project. The utility art boxes are proving to be useful in other communities. 4 Old Town utility boxes are now featured in the popular Pokemon Go app. These boxes are now Pokestops where players can tap, spin, and collect free in-game items. Community outreach had over 15,400 total views and reaches of over 85,800. For stats, the team posted 3 reels with more than 10,400 views. These featured our sister city, Daisen Nakayama, Japan, city facilities, and Mayor Schwenk enjoying the plethora of bike trails available in Temecula. The 18 promotional posts from both social media platforms brought over 57,400 reaches. TCSD's community outreach team has started the new year off with several video projects, social media programming, and other department assignments. Current and upcoming marketing projects are Black History Month events and programs, the creation of a new logo for the Ready Commission's African American Heritage Month proclamation, Temecula Culture Fest marketing campaign, the design of the Spring Summer Activity Leisure Guide, and more. Video projects currently underway include highlighting class instructors, State of the City videos, and the Temecula Alumni Series videos. Next is Inclusive Services. On January 6th, 80 participants had a great time at the High Hopes New Year event with DJ Jeff Waddleton at the Mary Phillips Senior Center. Goals, resolutions, and/or other intentions were shared, followed by a cheerful countdown with kazoos and party horns to end the evening. The Youth Advisory Council worked toward professional development by putting the SMART method into practice. Additionally, they worked on obtaining their food handlers' cards and collaborated with Vlad's Seas of Life. This group meets every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. at the Mary Phillips Senior Center. The first inclusive visual arts session of the year was held at the Mary Phillips Senior Center and led by staff. Participants learned about color theory. They each created their own color wheel and painted their own renditions of Pablo Picasso's original painting, The Dream. And I will save you my pronunciation of that painting in French. Participants studied their other painting techniques during this process. Now a look at senior services. On January 4th, the Alliance of Youth Leaders in the United States held an exceptional volunteer musical performance at the Mary Phillips Senior Center. Seniors took delight in the students' performance of various classical numbers and a dance routine while enjoying lunch. On January 5th, Mary Phillips Senior Center hosted the annual Senior Holiday Luncheon. The event included a choir performance of various Broadway songs, chicken pozole provided by staff, and a very fun raffle. January 31st, Commissioner Jeff Kingsburg visited the Mary Phillips Senior Center. During his visit, Commissioner Kingsburg learned about the various programs and activities of the facility. He shared some of his history with our lovely group of seniors and answered plenty of questions they had for him. Incidentally, Commissioner Kingsburg's wife, Rosemary, is a new volunteer at the Temecula Valley Museum. We're very excited to have her, and we are very grateful for their tenure and commitment to Temecula and for dedicating their lives to public service. Still at the Mary Phillips Senior Center, seniors created beautiful abstract paintings and friendship bracelets in January for the Senior Arts and Craft program. Some of their bracelets included the names of the crafter. The January Warm Center total impact was 310 participants. Temporary relief from the cold was available when the daytime temperature dropped below 40 degrees. On January 13th, a representative from Vials of Life program came to the Mary Phillips Senior Center. Seniors received their Vials of Life life-saving kits. The vials contain important medical information that can assist emergency personnel in administering the proper medical treatment. The Temecula Valley Museum hosted over 1,800 patrons in the month of January. The museum staff was busy with an exhibit change in mid-January. Tattooed and Tenacious, Inked Women in California's History was installed in time to open on January 5th. The exhibit also features a small selection of time period women's clothing from the museum's archives. The exhibit will be on display until March 19th. The museum's new exhibit social media post on Instagram has received positive feedback with over 120 likes and a share that expresses interest from a viewer stating, "I've never been to the museum, but I think I need to visit, at least for this exhibit." So that was really exciting news for us. Another exciting thing we had with the curator's report is that in late January, the Temecula Valley Museum received a letter from Dorothy Gardner, the wife of Kenneth Gardner Jr., who is the nephew of Earl Stanley Gardner. In the letter, she offers to donate a woven basket created by the weaver Juanita Nejo, who resided in our region in years past. Also included was a scan of the letter from Earl Stanley Gardner's wife, Agnes Jean Bethel, describing the basket being given to Kenneth Gardner Jr.'s parents, Earl's brother and sister-in-law. We look forward to receiving the treasured heirloom basket soon. On January 21st, from 11 to 12 p.m., the Temecula Valley Museum, along with Ikebana Sengetsu School, provided a Joyful Flowers demonstration and display of the centuries-old Japanese art of flower arranging. The demonstration was led by instructor Virginie Pesch and Professor Valeria Brinkers from the Sengetsu School. Both women created unique and beautiful arrangements, all while answering questions and sharing information about the history and philosophy behind their art. This event concluded with a total of 20 guests in attendance, including TCSD Commission Chair Kathy Sizemore and her son, and Commissioner Jeff Kingsburg with his wife Rosemary. Thank you for joining us for this culturally enriching experience. On January 11th, the Temecula Valley Museum unveiled a mural entitled Frederick Douglass. The beautiful mural was created by 15-year-old artist Maya Hill, a Mission Vista Academy and Bigfoot graphics art student. Maya was asked to create a mural in honor of Frederick Douglass and in support of the Temecula Valley Museum's American Black History Month for February. Maya stated, "I'm so honored to have me and my talents selected for this project. Even with all the lovely help I received, completing it was a bit of a challenge. My favorite part of this mural is by far the bust of Frederick Douglass. Council members, Ready Commission, Planning Commission, City Executive Staff, Museum staff, and Community Services Commissioners, including Chair Kathy Sizemore, were all on hand to greet the 15-year-old artist, thank her family, and express appreciation for her talent. Here are some upcoming events in February, March through the Museum Arts and Culture. Friday, March 3rd is Art Off the Walls with featured mixed media art from local artists and Katika Clemming-Smith in the gallery at the Merc. In conjunction with Tattooed and Tenacious exhibit, the museum will offer Women of Ink, a free discussion and demonstration on March 4th from local female tattoo artist Melissa Freeman, who will share examples of her work and discuss her experience as a female tattoo artist today. On March 11th, don't forget to join us at the Temecula Valley Museum to celebrate the beautiful country of Israel at the newly renamed Culture Days event, formerly known as Second Saturday Cultural Celebrations. The March-April mural features Cesar Chavez, American laborer, leader, and civil rights activist, along with Dolores Huerta, co-founder of the National Farmers Workers Association, which later transformed to become the United Farm Workers Labor Union. All are welcome to attend and meet Great Oak High School student Marco Magallanes. Follow our Instagram for event updates and history posts. Lastly, we have workforce development, which had an impact of 40 participants. Students held 2 meetings, averaging 12 high school students per meeting. Students facilitate youth programs and city events such as Junior STEM, College Fair, Rocktober, and more. The Junior STEM program held its 4th meeting of the school year on January 25th with 16 middle school students in attendance. This concludes our full report, and we are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Isabel, for that very thorough report. We appreciate and enjoy having you here with us this evening. Thank you. We'll go ahead and take comments and questions from our commissioners, and we will start with Commissioner Hawks.
Thank you, Isabel, for the report. I want to say that I really appreciate the STEM program. I like that it was, I see it in the community service magazine for the first time. So I think that'll help promoting it and get more participation. And I signed up my children, so they enjoyed it. My son told 2 of his friends, and apparently they are not aware of the class. One lives in Harveston and one lives in French Valley. So, but as soon as they found out, they signed up. I think their parents signed up for all the remaining classes. So one small, maybe something for future to improve is there is some misunderstanding about the timing, the ending of the program. So this last week, I think, the parents were told it'll end at 6 o'clock, but then actually ended at 6:30. So they all waited for 30 minutes. So maybe that'll be something for the staff or maybe the students who are.
Yes, absolutely, we will get to the bottom of that. That should not happen.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yes, but I do like it that the youth innovators are leading it and teaching the younger kids. So I think it's a really great program for them to mentoring their younger peers. So overall, that's I think I look forward to going to that program more often and just to see it to grow.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawks. Commissioner Kingsburg?
Thank you, Chair Sizemore. Thank you, Isabel, for the report. Outstanding. Tons of great things going on, information, and I appreciate the free press on my visit to the senior center. And I'm going to let my wife know when I get home that she's mentioned not once but twice. So maybe her volunteer hours need to increase, right? but thank you. Really excited to hear about the High Hopes program again and the inclusive arts. I just think that's so important. So really, really excited to hear about those programs. Looking forward to hearing more. And I have had occasion to get over to the museum a couple times, and I did get a look at the voting rights posters. So that's really a good addition to what you've been doing there. And excited about the new exhibit as well on the tattooing. So keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Kingsburg. Commissioner Castro?
Thank you for the report. My wife and I really enjoyed the Art Off the Walls exhibit. I was amazed by how many different types of artists were there at that event, and I think it's a great thing for them to have the opportunity to display their art, and thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Isabel. So it was Portuguese for Cassandra and French for you. So
Yes.
I would be happy to help with both of those. Great report. Thanks for the details. As always, the diversity in our arts is just arts and culture here in Temecula just really jumps out. We were fortunate to attend the African American Heritage Proclamation at Ready. I will publicly state that it's disappointing that we're doing those at the commission level, and we'd love to see that come back to the city level. But that said, Ready really did a spectacular job, really brought the community out for that wonderful proclamation. Thanks, Isabel.
You're welcome. Thank you, Vice Chair Adi. And my comments would be on Art Off the Walls, our first Friday art events that we do. I was speaking with organization, community, Shakespeare in the Vines, and we were talking about theater arts in our city and just the amazing talent that we have here just within our community, and looking for more opportunities to have our performers share with the community what it is they do, have them getting engaged with the community, and just feed into increasing the theater arts in our community. And one of the ideas that we just had maybe suggested, maybe a possibility of adding some theater performance element to our first Friday. Street performances, I said street performances, and Shakespeare in the Vines came alive with that. So maybe just a suggestion, something to think about. We do have a beautiful theater here, and perhaps maybe some opportunities to maybe even just do some classes for the backstage.
Thank you for mentioning that. We have worked with Shakespeare in the Vines for 17 and a half years. They do a competition every April on Shakespeare's birthday, and that's done through the school. Rob Crissell manages that, and you'd be surprised at the talent that is inspired by Shakespeare's words. Shakespeare in the Vines has a lovely season in the wine country, but we can reach out to them and see what they can do for us. We usually have musical performances, but street performers will also, be an opportunity to expose them to promote their season as well. So we know them very well, and we will reach out. Thank you.
And I just thought it might be fun. I was thinking about our street piano, and maybe some street performers on another corner, just to really attract attention to the thriving arts community we have here in Temecula. Thank you. All right, thank you again, Isabella. It was a joy to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, now on to our consent calendar. We have one item, which is to approve our action minutes from January 9th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Anybody?
I move.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawks. A
Second.
Second from, so a motion by Commissioner Hawks, a second by Vice Chair Audi. And Tracy?
I will take the roll call. Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawks,
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsburg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Audi,
Aye.
and Chairperson Sizemore.
Aye.
All right, the motion is approved, 5-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tracy. Now moving on to our business portion of our agenda. The first item we have on that is to review our current Community Services Commission mission and discussion of priorities. We have two attachments. If you've viewed them, I'm going to turn on my computer to take a look at them. Erica, do you have a quick description of?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to pull that up on my monitor,
Yeah,
but
I'm not
Dawn is going to save me by providing me with a hard copy that I didn't bring down here, so
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so the Community Services Commission was actually established in 1990 as the Parks and Recreation Commission. And at that point, the duties of the commission included reviewing and making recommendations to City Council concerning the Parks and Recreation element of the general plan, and to work with the Community Services District, TVUSD School District, and other city departments and community groups to provide parks and rec services and programs for the community. So as I mentioned earlier, at that point, at its inception in 1990, the focus of the commission was very much really on park development and recreation planning. It didn't include what I would call the broad umbrella of community services that we have currently. So then in 1993, an ordinance was accepted by Temecula City Council to rename the Parks and Rec Commission to the Community Services Commission to reflect this broader mission. However, the mission formally of the commission has not been formally reviewed since its inception in 1990. Obviously, over the past 30 years, the department and the city have evolved substantially. The population has grown exponentially, and as you, Commission Chair Sizemore, recommended, it might be time to take a look at that and revisit the mission and see if there's a way to update it or make it more relevant, or if it's good as it is, which is fine. As a quick note, in many cities, they have a Parks and Rec department, which is how we got our start. In community services, we have what I would consider 3 main subdivisions. So within each department, we have divisions in the city. So if you're not familiar with that structure, like the Public Works Department has a CIP or Capital Improvement Project division. It has a Roads Maintenance division. It has a Land Development division. In community services, we have about 13 divisions. We have a lot of divisions. But I would say broadly, they can be grouped into 3 basic categories. One would be kind of your classic Parks and Rec. That would include, aquatics, contract classes, recreation programs, teen programs, day camp, scooter and skate jam nights over at the skate park, pump track, that kind of thing, Parks and Rec. And then the second sort of major subdivision I would consider would be cultural arts, which would obviously cover everything you just heard about, our wonderful visual and performing arts programs, gallery spaces. I would lump the library under that, although it's not there in terms of our reporting structure. In terms of how it serves the community, I would probably put the library there as well as the History Museum. And then the and the public art program. And then the final sort of major subdivision would be human services. And human services would include, broadly speaking, senior services, special needs and inclusive services programming, homeless outreach would be human services. And that's one where the library could kind of go either way. The library in some cities is more cultural arts, in some cities is more human services. So broad umbrella of community services, Parks and Rec, cultural arts, human services, and then within each of those areas we have multiple other divisions.
Okay.
So I hope that provides a quick overview. If there's any questions or I left anything out, just let me know.
Okay. So we're going to have a discussion about that.
Indeed.
All righty. So does anyone have any comments you want to make? I know last year one of the things that we did, because we will be going in next month to have our annual joint meeting with the city council. And our next item on this is to look at items that we're going to highlight that we're going to share with council. But one of the things we do also want to share with council is what our vision and maybe any priorities that we want to pursue together as a commission this year are. And also, to reflect on, is our mission still relevant today as it was back in the 90s for our commission? We do have a broad umbrella of services that are under TCSD. Is there, just throwing out a suggestion, one thing I've had a couple of people mention to me is some cities have art commissions. Is that an element, or?
Chair Sizemore, if I can jump in for just a second, I would like to clarify just one thing. When it comes to setting the priorities for the year, certainly that is appropriate to bring up at the joint meeting. If the commission decided it wanted to recommend changes to the duties of the commission or the mission of the commission, that's established by ordinance, and so that would have to be sort of a separate activity at council, and it would likely go through the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee first, because to rewrite an ordinance absolutely can be done, but it's a much more involved legal process than simply recommending priorities for the year, if that makes sense.
All right, so we will just focus on priorities for the year.
Can I ask, I kind of asked the mayor about his theme this year, but has that been rolled out?
I don't know that there is a theme. I heard it was a themeless year.
Yes, the mayor has decided to not have a mayoral theme this year. He will still be having a State of the City address, but he doesn't have a specific, he doesn't have a specific theme for this year.
Okay.
That's too bad, because I thought of a good one. Temecula moves.
That's excellent.
The I-15 groundbreaking that we're starting, the trails, the biking, Temecula moves.
But I think that is a great way to go for our priorities in this commission. Temecula moves.
Yeah, we also want physical fitness,
Yes,
active transportation.
Well, I think, based on our master plan that we worked on a few years ago, and the next step into the quality of life master plan, I think that healthy happy community is really focused in that plan. And, you know, I think that's something that we can affect as a division, is how this community moves, how we can, you know, improve health in our community, improve happiness through movement. I think that's, you know, the fact that that's a good word to use. You know, my thoughts were something along those lines of active community, that type of thing. So yeah, I would put my 2 cents in for something like that as a priority,
Okay.
as a theme.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone have any comments? Commissioner Ginsburg?
Yes, I did look over the agenda report, and it sounds like we're kind of moving toward, you know, priorities overall, but that's what really struck me is what Ms. Russo spoke of with, and I remember the first conversation I had with you, Erica, regarding community services, and that's kind of how you laid it out. There's these 3 planks, and going back to the agenda report, as far as taking just a step back here, as far as our input on what our job description or domain might look like, or what might we recommend, obviously, I would say yes to whoever's in charge of doing that. 30 years later, it does need to be updated because obviously community services has evolved. I wouldn't even say threefold. There's 3 big planks, but it's evolved 900 times, probably greater in scope than what it was. So that was the first thing that came to mind to me. Yet, you know, going toward priorities, I've requested, and I have the QLNP. I'm going to look that over, the updated. But I think what Gary's speaking to is, and it's really what you guys share with us apparently every month, is how many people are participating in these various pursuits? How many people are actively involved and engaged in the city? And if the focus of that is an active lifestyle or movement of some type, which we know is good for people, I support that.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify that too, that sometimes when I speak, it comes back to, well, physical sport type activity, but no, I see it in that broad scope that it is culture, it is the arts. Movement is such a huge part of it, and just in your reports, reporting on the tap dancers, the you know, street performers would be amazing. And you know, when we talk about street performers, usually you see street performers in places that are pedestrianized,
Yeah.
that are more of a walking type of a venue as opposed to in streets with cars. So we can be modeling that through you know, programs like that. So I'll back off.
Well, no, and one of the things that, you know, as we're on this Temecula and movement, one of the things I had kind of thought that I would be interested in seeing a possibility to pursue, perhaps in conjunction with our Public Traffic Safety Commission, is a joint effort for doing some bike safety training. I am seeing just a number of people, including youth. It's been on Wednesdays when I'm driving home and I see the early release, the junior hires from Margarita Middle School. I'm seeing kids riding home without helmets. And when I think back to, I grew up in Anaheim, and Anaheim has its own fire, own police, and utility. I remember, and I couldn't wait to be in 4th grade because the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders got to have bike day. And the police department, fire department came out, inspected our bikes, and you got to ride a course and do your little hand signals and get your I can ride my bike license. And, you know, I still use those hand motions signals that I learned back in elementary school. And I just, as we are becoming a community moving, and I know younger generations, I'm going to say the Gen Zs, are more interested in micromobility because of the better for the micromobility options, better for the environment, they don't want to own a vehicle and all the costs of it. I see it as maybe being an element to add that bike safety.
Since you brought it up, it is a phenomena that we're seeing. It is true that more and more kids have bikes. After the holidays, more and more kids are riding bikes to school, and they're riding e-bikes.
E-bikes.
And they're
without helmet.
riding them without helmets, they're riding them improperly. More and more, as our bike population grows in the city, we have that lack of understanding of the education of rules of the road. And I'm seeing I saw electric skateboard going the wrong way on La Serena in the street. So you see examples of that all the time. We've spoken before about education, how important it is, and I think that's gonna be a part of what staff is working on, is try to do more bicycle education, safety programs for not only cyclists, but pedestrians, and autos. So I think that one of the examples I just wanted to bring up, because you brought that up, was the city of Carlsbad declared a state of emergency because of their bike safety problems they were having, mostly related to students riding to and from school. So I think that's something that, we're going to start seeing more and more tragic things.
Temecula move safely.
Yes, and I think that it's something that needs to be taken very seriously.
Thank you. Hi, Commissioner Hawks?
Yes, I have a comment about our current mission we're discussing. So I look at it as the ordinance was done originally in 1990, established the park and recreation, then 93, changed to community service. I see the vision in them setting that the name change, so it's not just park and recreation, like Director Russo mentioned. We have park and recreation, but also culture, art, and theater, and human services. So we've had that big umbrella and have the 3 branches under it. So I see it as, it's very broad and it covers all the services we are offering. So I don't see a need for us to update it or to change it, because it's all under the broad umbrella. The details, it's changing, it's evolving. But the big picture is still the same. We are serving the cities through culture, through parks, and through human services.
Okay. What about workforce development? I know we mentioned that a little bit at our last meeting, and how we have the girls' career fair to introduce girls in our community to career options in fields that women are historically less likely to pursue. We had mentioned, because it would be nice to make sure that we are inclusive and we're including our young men in our community in their career pursuits. Is there an element under workforce development that we feel we should be pursuing to serve the young men in our community?
So I want to make a comment there is, I think if we offer the program that's offers, say, we're talking about students or kids, if we're offering to all of them, whether boys or girls, give them that accessibility. They can come, for example, the STEM class. I signed up both of my children, a boy and a girl. The first one, they both went. My son was excited, wanted to go back again, but my daughter was not interested. Even though her mom is a scientist, she's not interested. So I didn't sign up for the next one. So I think if we can provide that accessibility for all of them, then some have the interest to go pursue, that's great. But if some, they don't really have the interest, then they can go pursue something else.
So can I clarify, are you suggesting that the career fair should be open to boys and girls?
Yes.
So I'm just going to jump in here real quick on this. So the Young Women's Career Conference was devised by former Mayor Mary Ann Edwards as part of one of her earlier mayoral years. So each year the mayor typically, they choose frequently a theme, but also sometimes they'll choose specific events they want to do. So while Mary Ann was on the council, that was her event. It was not a community services event, although we did support it through workforce development under Charles, but it was really a mayoral initiative. I don't know what the future of that program will be now that Mary Ann is no longer on the council. Turning again, for some reason, well, just to clarify, with the youth STEM program, one of the questions we ask is, are there individuals who might be involved in activity if it were structured differently or if it were open to them in a different way? Example, with the pump track. A lot of us, myself included, could look at the pump track and say, wow, that looks like a ton of fun. There is no way I am in any way possess the agility on a bicycle required to get on that pump track when it is full of 7 to 17-year-olds who all know what they're doing and are whizzing around at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
And bounce back when they hit the ground.
But let's say one day they said, hey, we're going to have a middle-aged person who have questionable bike skills day on the pump track. Well, I, middle-aged person with questionable bike skills, might actually engage in that activity on the pump track. Okay. But without that carve-out, I will probably never attempt to ride the pump track. Same thing applies to any of our programming. There will always be people for whom a given program feels automatically accessible. Silly example, there are some people who are naturally very gifted at, say, sports, and you could drop them in, even if they've never played soccer before. You could say, hey, we're going to do a pickup game of soccer, and they're like, yeah, I'm down, you know. And then there are people who are like, I've never played soccer, I don't know. And so part of what we do in community services is we try to provide opportunities oftentimes to open the door for people who might not otherwise push it open themselves, if that makes sense. There will always be the people who are comfortable walking through any door. You know, there are people who are comfortable performing on stage. There are people who aren't. There are people who are comfortable engaging in sports. There are people who aren't. There are people who are comfortable engaging in certain types of social settings and groups. There are people who aren't. So a lot of what we do is about identifying communities where, for one reason or another, there's been a barrier to entry, whatever that barrier to entry might be. It could be anything. Like I said, it could be middle-aged people can't ride bikes. And so, going back to something like the STEM program, the question becomes, if we provided an environment which was only for girls, would more girls feel comfortable participating who may not feel as comfortable participating in a co-ed environment? Maybe, maybe not. But that's part of the thought process. So several things there I want to recap. One is the Young Women's Career Conference. I don't know what the future of that will be. That direction will probably need to come from someone higher than me, probably above my pay grade on that one. Secondly, we need to be cautious when we're saying, yes, everything should be available to everyone, but are there cases where we could just provide small carve-outs, one activity, one series of things that might provide an entree into something that someone might not normally have? A third thing, workforce development. Every single program we do in workforce development, with the exception of that Young Women's Career Conference, is co-ed. And we actually have several programs in workforce development which, by nature of their content, are almost exclusively open for boys. Specifically, Charles has developed a program to provide externship, so real-world workforce participation experience for high school students who are interested in different fields, one in particular being the automotive industry. As far as I'm aware, to this date, there have been 0 girls participating in that program, despite the fact that it is open to both genders. It is by default a boys-only program. Every other program we offer, every single program is open for boys or girls. They're all willing to participate, all welcome to participate. But there are sometimes social conventions and or things that prevent certain other people from participating. Not to harp on this, but if we had a automotive externship that was girls only, Would we get a few girls who might be interested, but who don't feel like elbowing their way into a boys program? Maybe, I don't know, we haven't tried it. So, just to reiterate, all of our workforce development programs are co-ed. Some of them have 0 female participation. I suspect our junior STEM program is going to become increasingly male-dominated since we've opened it up for both, because we have found the proportion of boys participating is growing each time. I'm very glad those boys are coming. I'm very glad they're having a good time, but we should not be blind to potentially some of the other effects. So, anyway, sorry, tangent,
No,
but I think that
thank you.
addresses a few
I
things.
know we had, our last meeting, we had a bit of a conversation about workforce development with young men. Is it because it is an element of what our commission, under that umbrella, would it be beneficial to have a presentation from Charles about what the workforce development?
I think that is an excellent idea. Mondays are difficult for him for personal scheduling issues. So what we might have to do is have him record possibly a little video, and or we might be able to see if we're able to set up a Zoom option. I know there's some particulars that we would have to discuss with the city clerk about utilizing Zoom for a public meeting. But I definitely think there's value in that, even if Charles maybe he might send a delegate to represent his program. But I absolutely agree that would be very beneficial.
I think it's important to know, we're all ambassadors out there for the community and what community services does, and I think it's good to understand what workforce development is doing so that we can steer the right people who will benefit and need those services towards them.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the other programs I wanted to mention that is by default almost exclusively male participation is Charles has set up a program working with MSJC and Habitat for Humanity to provide real-world construction skills to high school students. It's a fantastic program. It's 6 or 8 weeks long. They attend classes on Saturday mornings throughout that time at MSJC. They learn basic skills and trades, basic business-type accounting issues. They get their OSHA 10 certification, and then at the end, they participate with Habitat for Humanity on a hands-on project. It's a great program. That's another one that I think has been 100% or close to 100% boys only.
It'd be great to have that information. I have a young man right now in Scouts who's 16 and just took his GED. Both his parents are deceased, and he's trying to support himself, and I had suggested an internship because he has an interest in the automotive industry. So I'd love to be able to know where I can access that information.
Definitely. Is he still in high school?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, you just said GED.
Yeah.
If you can send me his contact information,
Okay.
we can definitely reach out to him directly and find whatever pathways we can for him.
Okay.
For sure.
That'd be awesome.
Well, we'd be happy to.
Back to our conversation. Do we want to? So from my understanding, what I'm hearing is we don't feel like we need to review and take a look at changing our commission's mission from back in 1993. We're solid in that?
Sorry, if I can just jump in one more time on that. So I think it would help if I go through the actual ordinance, the original ordinance establishing the original Parks and Rec Commission. Most of the information in there, I think, is still completely relevant. It describes how you're all selected, that you must be members of the community, how you're appointed by council, that there will be staff assistants, the time and place of the meetings, the term of the commission. The only thing I think that bears really, thank you, whoever just did that, Jello, thank you, very nice. If you look at the very bottom of that page, 6A, oh, sorry, I think we're actually we're on the wrong resolution, sorry. If we can pull up 90-39. Yes, there we go, 6A at the very bottom, duties of commission. Review and make recommendations to the City Council concerning the Parks and Recreation element of the general plan and work with the Temecula Community Services District, the Temecula Valley Unified School District, and other city departments and community groups to provide parks and recreation services and programs for the community. This is the one element of the resolution that I think might bear some scrutiny. And I don't think it would take a ton of changing to update it, but it might just be broadening a couple of the terms. It might just be something as simple as revisiting the general plan, making sure parks and recreation element is still the appropriate and encompassing term, and then identifying if who you're working with is still the correct list, or if that should be broadened or changed in any way. And then finally, the very last words, to provide parks and recreation services and programs for the community, whether or not that language needs to be broadened slightly. I think that's the only element of this resolution that would require any real scrutiny. So if that's something you want to table for a future discussion, and then the ordinance, Jello, if we could pull that one back up, the 9306. Thank you. Darn, you're good. This one, again, this just changed the name, and I don't think there's anything we actually really need to, that really bears changing in that one. And then finally, as we discussed for the year, if you wanted to set a theme, a priority, goals, that kind of thing, I think that's entirely appropriate and certainly something you could discuss at the joint meeting.
Okay. So where do you recommend we go from here? Erica, do we just end this conversation?
If I were you, I would probably suggest that we agendize at a future meeting, reviewing just that section 6A of Resolution 90-39. And then I personally would go consult with the city clerk, and I would bring you back a staff report detailing exactly what that would take. Okay. And you all could have a further discussion about now that you've seen it once, you can kind of think through it. We can come back to a future meeting and you could each make any suggestions and then kind of agree on wording. Okay. But then we would have a path forward based on what the city clerk would tell us in terms of how we would go about doing that. Or you may come back and say, actually, we don't think it needs any updating at all. It's perfectly fine. Also totally fine.
Since it's an agenda item, but it requires discussion, do we need to have Kathy make the recommendation, or do we need to make a motion?
That's a great question, Secretary Courts.
I think because the agenda item says discussion.
Yes.
She can end the discussion with that summary.
She can, and she can direct us to bring it back as a future agenda item, and that would not take a motion.
Okay. So are we going to end our discussion? Okay, we are going to end our discussion. And I am going to make a recommendation on that we come back to this in the future.
Duly noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, we will move along to our last item, which will be discussion of the highlights to include in our annual joint meeting with our city council, which will be next month. Do you guys have a list that you've prepared for us, or are we supposed to?
We're here to take direction from you. It's your presentation, so we want to be able to support you by providing the slides. It is requested by our city clerk that we use the template that you usually use for your city council meetings. Tracy Courts and our team will support in preparing those slides. The joint council meeting is moved to March 14th. So I know that Commissioner Kingsburg is not going to be here, but we can still have each one of you speak to a slide. So we want to try to keep it to 3 to 5 slides. In the past, we've given the whole year's report, and it's too much information. So they want it down to 3 to 5 highlights of accomplishments that you want to highlight, a couple of priorities, 3 to 5 priorities, and then to take direction from council. So those are your 3 elements that you want to address. So we want to hear from you what you want to point out and highlight, and then we'll prepare slides, and then you will present.
Okay. Do we want to break it into Parks and Rec, community, or Parks and Rec, Human Services, Culture and Arts?
I think that's a good way of doing it. I think that's a nice, natural, we might also want to include a section on, I would say something broadly about parks, active transportation, connectivity, that sort of thing, trails. And we can think of a tidier term for it, but I think that would be a good 4th category. And then there will be 4 of you present, I believe.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken to you since I got that email. I have a trip planned, but it could be canceled based on weather. So I'm a maybe. So look at the long-range forecast.
Okay, so we'll have 3 to 4, 3 to 4 commissioners there.
Yeah,
Okay.
my-
So, I mean, I think definitely, I mean, some
Oh,
of the.
I'm sorry, I think Commissioner Castro was,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
My daughter is supposed to have a C-section on March 16th, so if she cooperates, I'll be here.
Can
oh,
we
congratulations
request
to
that we
her.
move
I mean, we can go back to the city clerk and see if there's a different date, but someone's always going to have a conflict at some point.
Those were the only 2 dates, were that date and then
All
the
right, so
20th.
name Commissioner Hawks?
I have confidence that you both can handle this.
The 2 Toastmasters.
Yes.
All righty, so the two of us, what would we like to talk about?
Planning to be there, but this, you know.
Okay, so we've kind of broken it down into our different branches: human services, culture and arts, parks and rec, trails and connectivity. I definitely think some of the things that we want to highlight are going to be that opening of the Santa Gertrudis Trail. I think that's an important thing under our trails and connectivity. Our parks and rec, we had too many pump tracks from this year. Did we have any new park remodels that we unveiled this year?
We had,
I don't recall. I think just the,
I think it was just the pump tracks and the trails. We didn't have any no playground renovations for 2022.
okay.
So I have a
We had some
suggestion.
Native gardens, though. Didn't we have native gardens at 3 parks?
Oh, the native landscaping?
Yes.
Yes, we could get that information from Stacy.
Okay.
Commissioner Hawks?
I have a suggestion for things to present, maybe, since each of us are in the community doing different things, participating in different programs, so maybe we can have each slide to show each of the commissioner what we're doing. I think that's what, for the council, they probably want to see what we're doing for the last year since they commissioned us on this commission. So I would recommend that we have one slide for each of the commissioners to show that we have been active in the community.
Yeah, I think it would work if you were able to stick with the main items that we want to address. So obviously, you know, if you've talked a lot about STEM, the arts and culture, and if those things if we're able to show those things and relate them to the presentation, I think that's not a bad idea.
And maybe that's an element of clarification. It feels kind of weird, honestly, in the past 2 years that we get up and we get to boast about everything you guys did. So what is the purpose of this report? Is it to share with the city council all the things that community services, their employees, staff did, or is it supposed to be about how we're doing and what we're doing in our role?
I mean, I think it's about the work of the commission, which necessarily intersects with the work of the department. So for something like the Planning Commission, it's a little more cut and dried because the Planning Commission has a regulatory function. So they're able to say, like, we took this action, we took that action. It's more, action item oriented. With us, I would say there is sort of a gray area between the work of staff, the work of the commission, the intersection of the two. I think a good place to start might be, before we even worry about sort of categories, if each of you looks back over the past year, what jumps out at you? Whether it's something you did, something you participated in, something you witnessed, something the city did. I think that might be a good place to start, is just what jumps out at each of you? What for each of you was your most memorable moment, for those of you who've been on the commission for the year? What was your most memorable moment or activity for the past year, or top 3, as the case may be? Is there anything, I don't know if you each want to kind of jump in with that?
Well, yeah. I think when former Mayor Ron said that we can make Temecula Bike City, I mean, that was as Kathy was mentioning, the Santa Gertrudis opening was for me as a commissioner, that really jumps out. That was a very special day. And I'm going to continue to use what he said that day as we move forward.
I think the opening of that trail was a very important thing in our community. I've enjoyed riding it for my recreation and fitness, but the thought has come to me, there's restaurants over in the Harveston area. I want to say, what is that, Outback Steakhouse? In that area, that shopping center, there's a couple of restaurants that I've always wanted to go to, but I don't want to drive over there. And I realized one day, gee, I'm riding by this on my bicycle, and I'm riding by Winco on my bicycle. I could use this trail to do, to get to run some of my errands. And I think the possibilities of that trail and what it can bring to our future residents is huge. So I do think that's definitely an important element, especially for Temecula moves.
Commissioner Hawks, did you want to add something there?
Yes, so for me, for the last year, I think the highlight is I not only participated a lot of the programs that our city offers, from parades to the museum programs to the art of the wall or theaters, but also the most memorable, be able to serve our community. I always have a heart of a servant leader, so I was able to volunteer at the senior center, at the museum serving food, or at the summer food program to serve food. So that was really a highlight for me. I think I want it to be example too, to see I want to make our community a better community by serving our community.
So what jumps out at me there between what the three of you have just said is there's at least two pretty obvious opportunities to kind of introduce things. Commissioner Hawks could potentially say exactly what you just said. I've enjoyed participating, but especially serving. Here are some of the things where I've served. And in doing that, that's going to highlight some of the most important things we've done throughout the year, the summer food service program, senior meal program, and so forth. And then for Santa Gertrudis Trail, maybe Chair Sizemore, that's something where you say, I always wanted to go to these restaurants, and one day I realized, hey, I'm riding my bike and the Santa Gertrudis Trail, and it's connectivity, and it's getting me out, and I'm doing an activity I never thought I would do. I know you've personally shared that, the decision to get a bike and ride a bike was kind of like, that wasn't something that you were always like, I'm always riding bikes,
I was peer pressured from fellow commissioners.
I think that's wonderful. Positive peer pressure. So I think for those two, it gives you each like a narrative element of a story. You're telling a story about something that is personal to you, but also helps highlight something that this commission has supported and done in the community. And
I do like one thing Commissioner Hawks mentioned about sharing what we're doing as commissioners in the community. I know I've had several occasions to speak with the Chamber of Commerce at events about elements of community services, and I've had several opportunities to have discussions with scouts, like the skate park discussion. I had another group that I went and talked to about government and our commission. I know Gary's done some speaking on biking in the community. I don't know, is that something we should be sharing with council?
Absolutely. Maybe an approach is to say, if there's, we want to keep it at 10 minutes or less. If there's 4 of you, say each one of the 4 of you gets 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
What if you only had 2.5 minutes to speak at the joint meeting? What's the most important thing that you want to convey about your work on this commission over the past year?
Okay.
And, sorry, my other caveat there would be save, out of the 10 minutes, maybe save a minute at the end to outline your goals for the future year, even if it's just in broad strokes, to say, we decided we wanted to issue ourselves a little theme this year, and it was going to be Temecula Moves Safely, or something like that, or Temecula Moves.
Okay.
And just saying over the next year, we look forward to focusing even more on these options. So.
Okay.
So I moved here 18 months ago, and before we moved, we could have moved anywhere in the country, and we were looking where to move to, and did a lot of research. You can find like trip advisors. What can you do in Temecula? Why should you live in Temecula? why is it a good place? And, you know, usually you read, it's a great place for families, and it's not a great place for nightclubs, and, you know, it's a certain thing, but people never really go into detail about why. And being on this commission, I've kind of used the last month to figure out, well, what is here in Temecula, and what kind of parks and what things. And the thing that comes out to me is the wide diversity of things that fall underneath this. And I don't think that's very well advertised, or it's not well known within the community, and how much there is, you know, from pump tracks to the theater to the library to all these cultural events. And, you know, my natural tendency is to go towards more move things, but seeing all these cultural things, I didn't know anything about all of the different cultural things that are available, or the workforce type activities. And I think a chart where you have the bubbles that show the sizes of these different activities and how many people are using them. I can't remember the name of those things, where you had the bubbles based on, you know, like word bubbles, and what words are used the most in a speech. But if you would have kind of that chart with the bubbles showing what activities are there and which ones are used the most, it would really stand out to the council, like, here's what's available and here's what's being used. Especially when they're making money decisions, you know, obviously they want to push it towards things that are used the most. That would kind of convey what I've seen since I've been doing this.
So maybe that just gives us like 4 different narrative lenses to introduce your section of the thing. So Chair Sizemore could talk about how, you know, courageously taking on a new skill and a new thing opened up this whole world of a different angle, different way to explore her city, and what that led to. And Commissioner Hawks could talk about how her passion for servant leadership has opened up her opportunities to connect with the community in all these ways, and that would highlight some of the human services programs. And then Commissioner Castro could talk about his perspective as somebody new to the community, and what you were looking for in a community, and why did you settle here, and how many of those things dovetailed with what we do. And then Vice Chair Audie, I just need to figure out your narrative window on this. If it's movement, outdoor activity, connectivity, something else entirely? Being an educator? What jumps out at you? And we don't have to decide it tonight, but if you wanted to discuss further, if there's anything that strikes you.
Well, Kathy stole mine, but.
What did I steal?
No, I think, I just think it's how it all works together, and is what, yeah, that's what is, because I kind of think that what I'm always worried about is that I get pigeonholed with bikes, you know, and no, it's about circulation, it's about movement, it's about health, it's about happiness, it's about reducing stress. But all of those things work together with arts, culture, all of the things that community services does. So, yeah, that's what I would do if it is raining that week.
I kind of see us as like one of those charts where it's the circle and it's the arrows making the circle, because we, you know, we're movement and just everything.
One thing I just kind of pitch in, when I watch the city council and I hear people give presentations, and one of the things they never address is the impact of what they're suggesting. So they'll say, I want you to do this, but they don't tell you what's the impact or how it helps the city, or why if I'm a councilman, what is the city going to get out of what you're proposing? And some of these things that we're going to bring up, I think if we can have some kind of impact statement, and it won't be clear on all of them, but like opening the Santa Gertrudis Trail Connector allows you to move from one side of the city to the other without getting squashed like a bug. You know, that's a huge impact of being able to move safely around the city. And including that impact statement shows to them, well, we invested however much money into building this connector, and what impact does it have to the community is a big deal.
I think that's a great point. So our community relations team are excellent storytellers. And I think we now have elements of the story that you want to tell. So my recommendation at this point would be to let staff kind of use this framework, take a crack at it, put together a draft, and then bring that back to you so you guys can each sort of adjust it, adapt it, and make any changes you might want to see at that point, and let us know if we're going in the right direction or not. And a lot of that could be done via email, so we don't have to worry about agendizing it as much. Now that we have a direction, that can just be something where we send to each of you the presentation, and you can each weigh in to us with your comments on that.
Okay, is it, I like the sound of Temecula Moves, and I hadn't even thought of it. I thought of it as a mayor theme, not as our commission. And I mean, I do think it encompasses a lot of what we're doing. I know you're very passionate about Temecula moving closer, further in the sciences. We're you know, with our STEM education, you know, we have Temecula movement with our dance and our arts. Temecula's moving, you know, more and more in our cultural appreciation for different cultures in our community with Culture Fest, connectivity, active transportation. You know, our parks are about movement.
I love it. I love that idea, and I love that the commission has a unifying mission and theme for the year. I think that's fantastic. Or it could be beyond the year. It could just be sort of your commission theme moving forward for a while. I mean, I think it's great. It's creative. We've never done it before, and I think it's a great idea.
Okay, do we need to make a motion to approve this? Do we just close the discussion?
No, I think for this, you can just close the discussion and close the discussion, and staff has clear direction.
Okay, all right. Do any of the commissioners have anything else they want to contribute to this discussion?
Just one question is, what's exactly the purpose of the presentation? Is that for the council to see what we've been doing in the past year and then set future directions, or?
The purpose of the presentation is more about the recapping the past year,
Okay.
but you could certainly use it as an opportunity to mention a future direction as well.
I have observed from other commissions, when they've done their annual meeting, that they will share, like, you know, this is one of our pet projects, one of our passions as a commission we want to pursue this year.
I was just going to share, again, I'm sorry I won't be able to attend that evening, but my mind went to where Commissioner Hawks went with the idea of suggesting, you know, hey, our commissioners are active, they're out there. Of course, Commissioner Castro and I are newbies, so we don't have the perspective on the last year. But if we were to include something like that, and I think maybe personalizing it for the people that are there is best. But I was going to say that I think the most you could do is about one slide with an example of one thing that each of the current commissioners have done, you know, recently. I mean, obviously, Chair Sizemore, Commissioner Hawks, and Adi have a long resume of things they've done. So that was, but I wanted to share, I did agree with that concept. That's where my mind went. Yet, as you're suggesting, Director Russo, that it really isn't about the current commission as it is more a yearly recap. So I think your suggestions have been good to try to move us forward.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I think you bring up a good point, which is there's certainly way more that we've done in a year than we can capture in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we will try very hard to make it so that the slides are not too text heavy, because that can become very tedious when you're presenting, but you have a slide up there that the audience is looking at, and it's very text heavy. The audience will read the slide more than they will listen to you. So we want the slide to be more image, light on text, and then you can fill in with your words what you want them to hear.
I want to add to that's what I'm going for, is less slides. And in the past, we have provided you with the words, the text, and we want this to come from you. So we will provide the outline, we will provide the images and the themes on the slide, but we want the story to come from your heart versus our notes for you. So that's a different approach that we're taking.
Yeah, it's different this year from what I've been accustomed to the last couple of years. But I do appreciate you giving us that opportunity to tell our story.
So if we have suggestions, who should we email to?
You can just email them to me, and I'll pass them along.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further comment on this item? All right, then we will go ahead and close discussion on this, and staff has our vision and direction, and they will make it happen. All righty. So now we can go ahead and move on to our director's report.
I'll keep it very brief. The only item I wanted to bring to your attention is that tomorrow, the mid-year budget adjustments will be going to council. So that's essentially where we bring forward any adjustments that need to take place, just like it sounds, in the middle of the fiscal year. We're actually slightly past the middle of the fiscal year. Nothing terribly exciting that I'm aware of, mostly just balancing out accounts, but if you were interested, that will be tomorrow at tomorrow's night's council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. Now for our commissioner reports, and we will start with Commissioner Castro.
I think we've talked about most of the things I had on my list. It's mostly been trying to get out and see what's available in the community, hit 4 different parks, including playing pickleball at the Margarita Community Park. I was very nice setup with the courts there. I didn't realize how serious people took pickleball until we went over there and saw the people using the court. One of the things I heard them talking about, though, they seem very interested in having tournaments. Does the city sponsor tournaments, or how does that work?
So that is a very loaded question.
I'm sorry.
The city has sponsored some, so we have a contract instructor who teaches beginning pickleball classes. We've contracted with that same instructor to run what are called ladder leagues, which is basically, well, you're probably more familiar, sequential play in the league format. The city has not yet hosted a tournament because we really don't have a facility large enough to accommodate. We do have a CIP, which Chair Sizemore has requested a little more information on, which is proposing an expanded pickleball complex over at Ronald Reagan Sports Park. Nothing's been finally decided on that, but it is sort of in the research phase process of that. Eventually, if we have that, we will be contracting with somebody to provide tournaments. The reason why I say it's a loaded question is because we do get a lot of rogue tournament play where groups will come in and they will kind of illicitly on social media set up their own tournaments, collect money, use the city park to run their own private tournament, which technically is not okay. But it's a tricky problem to try and crack down on because we don't always know what's happening until 80 people show up and have a tournament.
I think those kind of events are good for the city when you can do them legally and in a right way, because it brings in, you get people coming in to stay in town and you're driving business. And so I was just trying to get an idea of can the city do that kind of thing, where I saw there was baseball tournaments and softball tournaments and that type of thing.
Exactly. We do run tournaments for baseball, softball, and soccer. And we would envision expanding to pickleball once we have enough courts to actually be able to do that in a productive way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Kingsburg.
Thank you, Chair Sizemore. Just to recap, as was mentioned in the presentations tonight, the director's reports tonight, that I attended the Joyful Flowers demonstration and display on January 21st. Really enjoyed that. It was nice to see you there as well, Chair Sizemore. And I saw some beautiful introductory slides of beautiful Japanese gardens that has sparked an interest for me in placing Japan on my future travel list as well after attending this event. So excited about that potential. And then, as was mentioned, I did get to go to the Mary Phillips Senior Center on January 31st and was joined there by Community Services Superintendent Barnett. Thank you for joining me, Bea. I met the staff, Manager Yvette Martinez, and also Cassandra, who showed me around the facility, along with Cecilia and Max. Great staff, great atmosphere, a real caring and supportive environment for seniors who attend the senior activity and lunch, and many of them do so regularly Monday through Friday and really have a sense of community. I'm looking forward to going back this week on Thursday. They're doing their Valentine's Day event. I believe there's going to be a choir presentation as well. And I hope to participate in the Read Across America, the initiative the city's doing with Temecula Elementary. It's something I've done before, being in the school district as long as I have. And then finally, I'm looking forward to attending the Billy Joel tribute concert on March 3rd Well, you can't beat it. $25 concert in town, don't have to hit the freeways. Be a great front row seat. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hawks?
Thank you, Chair Sizemore. So I still want to say how much I appreciate the staff. I've been to libraries, I've emailed the staff about science fair, and I don't announce I'm a commissioner, I just go there. But I watch them treated the other patrons, and I always was treated with how do I say it? They really respond. I email, they respond back. It's not like I email, I don't know if I will hear back. So I wanted to express my appreciation to all the staffs at TCSD. And if I can, I do want to, can you tell me the date again for the appreciation for the staff?
That'll be next Tuesday on the 21st.
And it's, okay, next Tuesday, 9 to 2?
Yes.
Okay.
It's at the TCC, the Temecula Community Center.
Is that
on
over
Cujo.
Old Town?
Cujo.
Okay,
And it's Mardi Gras theme.
okay. Yes, so again, I want to, if I can, I'm not sure at the moment, I want to appreciate, but if I couldn't, then please pass along my appreciations.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
And that's all?
Thank you, Commissioner Hawks. Vice Chair Audi.
3 things. Thank you, staff. You are top deck staff. And thank you, commissioners, for your service.
Thank you, Commissioner Audi.
Thank you.
I will echo my staff appreciation. Here last month, I rode up to Somers Bend Park, and I found someone's wallet on the ground. And I'm like, oh, I got to get this back to this person. And I just really appreciate that I was able to text Erica, and she responded to me right away, sent a staff member over there. Fortunately, the gentleman returned just before the staff member, but there was just, it was quick, and people were responsive, and James Wilcox got out there, and I said, I'm so sorry, the person just got here. And he's like, no, it's okay. I'm happy to see you, and we had a good conversation. So just the attitudes. Our staff is awesome, and they have great attitudes.
Thank you. And thank you for being so, involved in the community and something like finding a wallet and just being willing to take time out of your day and make sure it got back to the person. I mean, we really appreciate that as well.
Thank you. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I've had a resident come up to me to talk about requesting more Frisbee golf options in the community. I guess some of our HOAs are forming Frisbee golf clubs.
Frisbee golf, we get, maybe 1 or 2 requests a year for Frisbee golf. And Stacy and I have talked about it, and he said there's really not a good site in any of our parks for it, just kind of based on the layout and what's required. But I keep telling him we're going to have to find one eventually because people get very passionate about their Frisbee golf.
Yes. Not quite up there with the pickleball passion.
Not yet.
Yeah, I saw something in their eyes that made me go, oh, you look like a pickleballer. So, these Frisbee golf people, it could get intense. When I was riding my bike at Winchester and Diaz, I happened to come across another cyclist who made the comment to me, this bush is a hazard. The city really needs to do something about it. If I'm going on Winchester West and I get to Diaz and you've got the path coming up, there is a tree bush that's overgrown that does block the vision of a motorist seeing that there's somebody on that trail that could be approaching. And vice versa, it makes it hard for a cyclist to see the road. So until you're at the sidewalk.
Okay, we'll pass that on to Stacy for sure.
And I wanted to ask you, I was approached by Temecula Rotary, their military committee would like to do some type of fair for military spouses so that they know the services in the community and they can start making connections with their community, especially in the case of their spouse being deployed. And I know that the Ready Commission has in the past identified veteran or spouses of our active military as an underrepresented group. So I didn't know if that was possibly a connection we could make, whether perhaps maybe they're having a portion at our community resource fair where, you know, the Rotary's Military Committee could be heading up something to provide information to those military spouses.
Definitely. Are they looking at hosting a fair themselves, and they'd like to use, like, are they interested in using the conference center for that, or is it more?
That was a mention, is,
Okay.
you know, how do we use a city facility? And then I mentioned, you know, as we started to talk more, I'm like, I don't, you know, this is kind of in line with our community resource fair that we already do. So I didn't know if there was some overlap or.
If you just shoot us the contact information for the Rotary,
Okay.
whoever's from the Rotary, then we can get in touch with them and we can figure out what the
Okay.
best solution is.
Okay, all right, and
Thank you.
that is all I have, thank you. All righty, so with that, we will go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and our next meeting will not be until March 13th at 6 p.m. But before we adjourn our meeting, we unfortunately, we have had a part of the Temecula family pass away. His name was Dick Fox, and he worked at our history museum, and he was really an important part of preserving our local history. His wife Lottie was one of our TCSD commissioners, so he's part of the TCSD family. And so we want to make sure that we just send them our condolences and that we're thinking about them. And we're going to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Dick Fox. So.
And Julie has stayed this entire time through this very unusually long. Most meetings were out in under an hour. You know, I did those city council meetings that went past midnight. Yes.